You guys go to? All right, good evening and welcome. We're grateful that you're here. We are convened as the Provo City School District Board of Education. It is Tuesday, September 14th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And we're meeting at 280 West, 940 North in Provo, Utah in the PDC or the Professional Development Center here at the district office. So we will begin with a roll call, and we will begin with Derek.
Derek Anderson, Business Administrator.
Gina Hales, Board Member.
Jennifer Partridge, Board Member.
Rebecca Nielsen, Board Vice President.
Melanie Hall, Board President.
Keith Rattel, Superintendent.
McKay Jensen, Board Member.
Terry McCabe, Board Member.
Nate Bryson, Board Member.
Okay, is there a motion to convene?
I move that we convene our business meeting.
All right, we are now in our business meeting. We will now have opening remarks by Board Member Rebecca Nielsen.
Good evening, everybody. Wanted to just welcome you and thank you all for being here. Just thank you all in advance. We have some hot topics on our agenda this evening, and I know there's a lot of emotion that runs deep with these topics. I've been in the middle of them for the last 2 years, and so I know there's a lot of big feelings is a term I would use with my preschoolers. So I want to welcome you all here and let you know that I hope, despite our differences tonight, that we can all be kind and civil towards each other as we present our different sides and our different arguments, and as we take some pretty important votes, and hope that a feeling of civility can be here with us tonight as we go through this meeting. And with that, if you would allow me to open with a prayer, I'll do that. Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity to be here this evening as community members and as the Board of Education and Administration, and are grateful for the opportunities we have to serve in this community. We ask for thy guidance this evening as we make our decisions, and for thy guidance on how to best serve the students in our district. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Next, we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance, and we will be led by Michelle Wages.
Thank you for standing. If you'll please repeat after me. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Be seated.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, we're going to have one of the highlights of this meeting, which is the Provo Way Award, and we're going to turn the time over to Deputy Superintendent Jason Cox.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to present these awards. We have some wonderful people we're going to recognize tonight. We're actually going to do something a little different, so I'm going to start off by turning the time over to Christine.
Hello. Emmy, would you come and stand with me for a minute, please? I would like you to meet Emmy Kim. Oops, and I'm just getting a little, there we go. Emmy's 9 years old. She's from Westridge Elementary. She just moved there. And she's had a hard time finding books that she could see herself in. So she decided that she would set up a lemonade stand and bake sale to raise money to buy children's books with diverse characters for local schools. Kids should see characters that look like them in books. Also, kids should learn about people who don't look like or have the same experiences as them. At first, Emmy's goal was to raise $150. Is that right? Yep. And to buy 10 books for one school. Well, guess what? She was so successful that she raised $762 at this time. You've raised more than that now, haven't you? I think so too. Yeah. So, through generous donations from her customers and her friends, she was able to buy enough books for 4 schools. That's 15 books per school. And you can see the schools that she donated those books to. Well, and these are some of the books that she picked. Now, the thing that I really liked about these books that I come to understand is Emmy wanted to have books that represented different cultures and races and ethnics in our school district, but she wanted the books to be written by people that were those ethnics. So I feel like that was just amazing. And she did a lot of research and found out that other than books about white people, the next highest number were non-humans, like animals or objects. And so she felt like we need to see more of everyone at our schools. So continue. These are more books. These are the 15 books. And Emmy, is this your favorite book? Yep. So when I heard about this, I was so impressed by Emmy's example that I felt like every school in our school district should have these 15 books in every school. So we purchased them, so every school has her collection of books. And then in November, the elementary librarians will share Diversity Through Literature Week, Emmy's story, and the books that she chose. So, Emmy, this is a surprise. You didn't know about this. But we are presenting you with the Provo Way Award for Outstanding Students. We'd like to give you this, and we also have this that we would like to give to you also, because you have truly exemplified the Provo way. You saw a problem, and you figured out an answer to it. Now, her mom just told me, this is pretty neat, that Emmy in 2 weeks is doing another lemonade stand and bake sale to raise more money, because we've decided there's still a couple more populations of students that we need to see them in. And one of them that we had identified was students with disabilities. So I would like everyone to join me in giving Emmy a round of applause. Emmy, when we finish doing the Provo Way, I would like all of these members of the board to have the opportunity to shake your hand, all right? Good? Or whatever, just bumped. Anyway, thank you.
These awards are so fun, and again, Emmy is very deserving. We have some other people we'd like to recognize tonight. We're excited to recognize Ruth Cottom, Yasmin Jones, and please stand when I call your name if you're here with us. Jordan Jory Bourne, Kirsty Kirkland, and Diana Dean. So those are the people that we recognize this month. What we're going to do is go ahead and watch the video of their presentations, and then afterwards, again, like was mentioned by Christine, we'd like to have all these people get the opportunity to let the board thank you for your work, for your efforts. You truly are examples to what we do here in Provo, and so we appreciate the work that you do.
Good morning, Provo City. We are the Celebrations Committee. We're at Rock Canyon Elementary School. We're here to surprise Ruth Cottom, who's an instructional assistant with the Provo Way Award. She doesn't know we're coming, so we're going to go surprise her. Follow us.
Congratulations. On behalf of the board, we want to say congratulations on being our Provo Way winner.
Well, thank you.
And Josh is the one that nominated you, so I'm going to turn some time over to him.
Okay, let's hear it.
So Ruth, I actually put in a nomination for you at the end of school year last year.
Yeah.
For someone who's been a retired teacher and decided to come back because they love to work in the school and love to be around the kids and to be an example and an influence on their lives. To see you come back and work as an instructional assistant, helping out in the second grade classrooms as an aide, also helping out with our testing here at the school, and you also help out with the reading skills and reading comprehension with kids K through 6. So I just am thoroughly impressed with somebody who's come out of retirement and wants to come back and work with the kids. You have a good heart and somebody who definitely wants to make an impact on our kids' lives.
I think the children have a lot to offer, and I'm glad I'm here to buoy them up.
Good morning. We're the Celebrations Committee, and we're here at Grandview. We get to celebrate Yasmin Jones this morning. She's going to be awarded the Provo Way Award. She's a part of eSchool. We're going to go in and surprise her, so here we go.
I want to just say congratulations and thank you for everything you do for our district.
Yes, it's been awesome. She joined us last year right at the beginning of the pandemic school year, and it was a mess. I was so impressed how she would just like answer the phone, even if she was still like learning what things were, how to do things, how to answer questions. She just jumped right in. She's like made really good suggestions on how to modify systems to make them better. She's always positive and works really hard, and I'm really grateful to have her.
Namaste. We are here at Westridge Elementary. We are the Celebrations Committee, and we are here to surprise Jordan Bourne. She's a second grade teacher here. So let's go do that.
We want to thank you on behalf of the Board of Education. Thank you so much for all that you do for our district. We hear that you've just been a great support, and especially in the last hard year or two, you've just really stepped up, and we appreciate all that you do. So
For all the work you did last year at Rock Canyon, being a first-year teacher, some of the students that we had issues with and that you struggled with, that struggled in the classroom, but you didn't struggle with them. She put in so much effort and time with all of her students during a COVID year. Just everything that you did. There was people that would come to school and wouldn't even know that you were a first-time teacher as a first year. So years beyond the teaching that comes with the years that you've been in. So you're just head and shoulders above a lot of your peers, and the effort, the heart, the care that you put into teaching children and then being the example and influence that they need outside of the academics as well is just second to none. So congratulations.
Welcome and good morning. We are here at Provo Elementary. We are the Celebration Committee, and we are here to give the Provo Way Award to Kirsty Kirkland, who is a very beloved librarian. She was nominated by all these people.
You are just so amazing. We appreciate you are not only a wonderful librarian who helps these children be so excited about reading, but all that you do with the school musical, the way you love these kids. You pour your love into each one of them individually, and we really appreciate that.
I have 4 children at Provost Elementary, and every single one of them was so excited when I told them that Miss Kirkland was going to get this award. I'm sorry, I didn't know. My daughter got to be a part of the musical, and she every day she said it was better than Christmas. She was so excited. Mom, this is going, and Christmas is a big deal. So I just want to thank Mrs. Kirkland and all the teachers at Provost. We have so many exceptional teachers.
I just have to add that the kids who are part of the musical, seriously, she always takes the kids who are shy, who are going through a hard time, and just really builds them up and builds their confidence. And as a librarian, she reaches out to help them find the books they love. She's just an amazing educator, so we love her.
I have 4 kids at Provost too through the years, and they've all loved Mrs. Kirkland so much. And I feel like she gives everyone a chance to shine in their own way, and I just love that. And even one of my daughters, she would come in here during lunchtime just to hang out with her, because Mrs. Kirkland is so fun, and so I appreciate everything you've done.
I just want to add that the library is usually the heart of a school, and so the heart of our school is Mrs. Kirkland, and we appreciate how much she loves kids, because she helps every single one, as has been said, rise to a potential that they sometimes don't even know about themselves. And we appreciate the battle of the books, too.
I'll just say she's like one of the best librarians I've ever worked with. One of the things even last year with COVID, there was a lot going on, and she took over and organized a grant to have after school for kids, and has done an amazing job. Even the people there are like, oh, she's amazing. Can we get her to come and help us with other schools? Like the talents she has and everything else, it's amazing. And I know it comes from the heart, though. It really, the passion is to doing what's best for students. And so that's why we just love, and I always am like, I'm so lucky to have Mrs. Kirkland here.
Congratulations!
We are here at the district office today as members of the Celebration Committee. We are here to recognize Diana Dean with the Provo Way Award. So come join us and let's go surprise her.
Thank you. This is for you. On behalf of the Board of Education, I want to thank you for all that you do here at the district. I hear you are just phenomenal to work with and are so helpful to teachers. And so we appreciate you being a wonderful face of the district.
So Diana and I work really closely together here in the HR department, but Mahani Fuller from Franklin Elementary is actually the person who nominated you. She's unable to be here with us today, but she said that she and her colleagues got together recently, and conversation was about licensure, and they all had something good to say about Diana.
They're the ones that are patient, and so I get the award.
That's right.
That's cool.
That's right. Several of the things that they said was that Diana's always patient and kind. She's always willing to work with anyone to hammer out the details and challenges that come with licensure. So we want to congratulate her and recognize all the great work that Diana does. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Cut.
Now, if you wouldn't mind, we'd like to give the board an opportunity to thank you. So we'll have you start right over here. Come on up and give them the chance to thank you again for the work that you've done.
So much. It's so great. Thank you.
That's one of my favorite things that we get to do here at the board meetings during the business meetings, and say thank you to the celebrations committee for helping put that together. Next, we're going to turn the time over to Christine Durst, and she's going to go over Provo Reads.
Like Melanie said, I am Christine Durst, and I am the district media coordinator. I work with the librarians, which is like the best job ever. It's so much fun. Each year, we talk about Provo Reads, and we're going to also talk about just a few other things. I need to turn this on. Here we go. So let's get started. So Provo Reads, we have a mission of bringing people together, reading common books, and also to increase their desire to read and discover the pure joy that comes from reading. Provo Reads is a Provo City School District initiative to promote literacy, broaden and deepen an appreciation of reading. This has been around for quite a few years. I think that I've been in the district doing this in my position for 8 years, but it's gone way past that for many, many years. Libraries throughout the district host activities connected to each year's theme by introducing related titles of books, library lessons, and conducting various related events. So this year, our theme is Reading Unlocks My Superpowers, and we're going to be focusing on graphic novels. Now, we did graphic novels about 6-7 years ago, it seems like, and it was such a success that we felt like we needed to go back and revisit and do this again. Only we're even doing this bigger and better than we did last time. And I don't know how we could, because it was pretty successful that year. So what are graphic novels, you say? Some of you are thinking, I know what graphic novels are, and I really don't like them. But I want you to keep an open mind, all right? So graphic novels can be all kinds of books. We have our classics up to new stuff right now. So a graphic novel is a book made up of comics content. Although the word novel normally refers to long fictional works, the term graphic novel is applied broadly and includes fiction, nonfiction, and anthology works. It's basically stories and information with pictures and visual movement. By you each have a book that's called New Kid. This book is the very first Newbery Medal Award-winning book that is a graphic novel because it is so amazing. The story is wonderful, and I hope that you will take the time to read it and then share it with someone else. So why graphic novels for Provo Read? Well, GN, which means graphic novel, books are a great tool in bridging the literacy gap for reluctant or struggling readers. And we have reasons why graphic novels benefit readers, and this is taken from the Scholastic Parent Staff from 2020. So graphic novels are full of text. Sure, they have drawings and illustrations, and sometimes photos, but they also have text that readers must actually decode, analyze, and comprehend. With graphic novels, kids must still follow plots, character development, they must understand cause and effect, and they must learn about perspective. All of these things will improve their reading comprehension. That's very important, isn't it? Graphic novels are engaging, often especially for reluctant readers. Graphic novels add the extra support kids need to help them through a text. They tend to be particularly captivating for kids, and the combination of text and pictures provides context for a story that they may otherwise not completely understand. And then the third reason, or the third benefit, graphic novels are high quality reading material. And that word high quality, those words high quality sometimes, bristle others, but keep an open mind. Just like traditional novels, graphic novels have exciting and complex plots, characters, and conflicts. The plots have twists and turns, characters are developed and dynamic. Conflicts are presented, unwound, and resolved like they are in any other texts. The only difference is that graphic novels have more images to support the development. If I would have had graphic novels like they have now, when I was first learning how to read, I feel like I would have been a better and more engaged reader. I struggled when I was a young girl, and back then all they had was Archie comics and DC comics and stuff like that. But now we have the benefit of having other books that are in graphic novel form. So, along with having graphic novels, we usually have an event or something that goes along as a district. And so we are having a Provo Reads Author Con. It's like a Comic Con, only it's an author con, and we have Utah-based authors and illustrators that are going to be participating on March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day, at Provo High. Isn't that the perfect place to go? It's a green school on a green day. So we have right now between about 15 authors and illustrators that have already agreed to be part of our Author Con. So, yeah, will this be successful? I'm thinking it will, because last Saturday at Dixon Middle School, we had 4 authors there from Shadow Mountain Publishing, and we think about 1,000 attend. Just that one event with 4 authors. And those 4 authors are going to actually be in the AuthorCon as well. And so we have authors and illustrators that are for young youth and young adults. So we have a pretty good basis for every interest. And this is a family event. And we will have all kinds of things going on that particular evening. We'll have prizes, games, swag. We have businesses, local businesses that are going to be there, which is huge. And so they're going to be there supporting us, having swag, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Workshops, it's just going to be great. And the best part of this is it is free for all of the families when they come. So I hope, I'm going to be inviting you each personally to come to this event, and I hope that you will take that opportunity to come and join us and just, feel the love and the fun and the vibe that comes with one of these events. All right, just a side note, I'm going to FanX on Friday because FanX is going to show me how to run a Comic-Con. So anyway, I've never been. So they're like, oh yeah, you need to go. So I'm doing research, okay? All right. The next thing that we do on a district level is Battle of the Books. We call it BOB, but the Battle of the Books. And this is an amazing event that we do every year. We have 16 of 18 schools that participate in this, which is awesome. That is secondary schools and elementary schools. So both high schools, 2 of the 3 high schools, we have Timpview and Provo High participating, Centennial and Dixon, and then 13 of our elementary schools. and it's just amazing. Not 13, 12. 12 of our elementary schools that are participating. And so the students read a selection of books and then compete as teams in their knowledge of those books in their schools. And then we have a district event. And this is some pictures of some of the things that we did last year. Because of COVID, we couldn't do it in person, so we did it via Zoom. And to be honest with you, it was really quite fun because the kids could turn the sound off and they could scream and shout and dance when they got the answers right. It was so much fun. And we look forward to doing this in person. We've got pictures from Centennial and some of our elementary students. It's just a really amazing, fun thing. The participation in this is huge. It's quite massive. We've got schools where we're having 50% of the students participate, and that's 3rd through 6th. So I feel like it's great. This is also a tool in helping students with literacy and reading. So the District Battle of the Book competitions is March 30th for grades 7 through 12, and then April 20th for grades 3rd through 6th at Provo High. We're still waiting on where we're going to hold the ones for the secondary schools. I would love to have you come and be a part of that too. So, as before we talked about Provo Reads and some of the goals that we have, and I feel like we accomplished that mission. We, through Teaching Library Corps, providing book-related opportunities, and much more, librarians throughout the district, the heart of every school, bring students together reading common books, increase their desire to read, and discover the pure joy that comes from reading. Thank you so much for letting me come and visit with you. It's good to get to know some of our newer members of the board. You're probably not new, but I'm new to you. Anyway, thank you very much. Do you have any questions or comments?
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Jennifer.
First of all, I just want to say thank you. We can see your enthusiasm, and I'm sure that permeates down to all of our school librarians and then to our students, so appreciate that. I just wanted to request, I would love to come to the Battle of the Books. Could you send us an invitation when it gets closer?
I definitely will, yes.
And let us know maybe how we could participate or help you out.
We'd love to have you participate. We need lots of help. We'd love lots of help also at the Author Con. You're welcome to come and volunteer for that too. Anything else?
Yeah. I just want to, I know it's probably not I really like the idea of the graphic novel. I think that's excellent. I learned a lot of Japanese by reading, the manga, which, it's compelling and it's interesting. And I remember my kid, he hated reading, and he learned with Captain Underpants because it's something that kids find interesting. So, as long as they don't read The Watchmen, kind of put that off for a bit. But anyways, I think it's a great idea.
I did forget also to mention in this that we have purchased books the kids will get to all through the year as they're reading books, and it doesn't have to be graphic novels. For each book that they read, they can put their name into a drawing, and then every couple of weeks we are having drawing, and the kids will be able to win graphic novels, brand new graphic novels. One of the newer ones that we're getting that just came out has got a lot of accolades is Miles Morales' Shockwaves. It's the Young Spider-Man series, and it's really quite great. So thank you, Nate. Anyone else? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Such a fun new read I get to do this week. All right, next we're coming to the part of public input, and I want to say welcome to those that are here. Before we begin, you're going to be allotted 3 minutes. However, if you're with a group and you're all here to say the same thing, we're willing to, if you want to get one spokesman, we would allot 5 minutes to that spokesman if you would prefer. And if we find that you're saying the same thing over and over again, we may ask that we will cut your time in half. So just be aware of that. But over here on my right, your left, are some papers that if you'd like to do public comment, you need to fill it out and then give it to Bonnie over here. So if you have public input, please get that filled out and hand to Bonnie. All right, first, and I'm really sorry, I'm really bad at saying names, so if is Alexis Puglisi.
You did pretty good on that, actually.
I did good?
Yeah, pretty good. Hi, I'm Alexis Puglisi. I am a lifetime Provo resident, and I taught junior high for 6 years in the city and was a Timpanogos resident until fairly recently. I live in North Provo now. I'm just here to add my support for keeping Dixon in Dixon. I just had a few comments that I wanted to add my voice behind. The first is that I feel like this Dixon question has kind of been a topic of conversation for the last few years, and every time it's come up for public comment or a vote in either a form of a bond or council seats, the public has spoken about what we would like to have happen, and that is to keep Dixon in Dixon. So I feel like your vote tonight should be reflective of the citizens of Provo and how we have voiced our opinion through our votes. I would really like to see that happen. And secondly, I would just like to add a little bit of a comment that I feel like right now you're having to make some hard decisions because of some past school boards that have made choices without any foresight into future choices that were going to have to be made. For example, Timfew's reconstruction right now, I know that was a lot of stress and conflict. And, you know, with the rebuilding of high schools, we had a lot of choices made without foresight, like Provo having $1 million field 1 year before they decided to move it, selling Provo High's old land to BYU just a few years before we decided to rebuild Timfew, which would have been a great seismically stable piece of land to build on. And I just wanted to point out that with Dixon and Centennial's overcrowding issues, this is a similar situation. I don't know if you remember or if you researched this. In 2005, we did have 3 junior high schools, and Fair Middle School was closed because Joaquin Elementary, which was another neighborhood school, was sold to developers and demolished. And so they used that land for an additional elementary school without adding an additional junior high. So the population was immediately split, and I know our population has been incrementally increasing over the years, but that year especially when we went from capacity to overpopulated by a lot instantly. So as we move forward here, I just want to remind you that, you know, we can make some choices now that are going to affect our future strongly, and maybe save some future school boards from having to make some tough decisions like you've had to. And I feel strongly that keeping Dixon where it's at is going to have a very positive effect on the community in the years to come. And, you know, keeping in mind that with our growth, we may possibly need a 3rd middle school in the future and be able to plan for that, taking all of these things into account as you vote tonight. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next, Benjamin Ellis.
Good evening, I'm Benjamin Ellis, speaking on behalf of the Dixon neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood. I'm the neighborhood chair there. We have a very mature neighborhood, lots of mature trees. It's an old neighborhood. It houses the Dixon Middle School. And people move there because of lots of reasons. One, it has a middle school and an elementary school. And it has elementary school kids, and it has middle school kids there as well. That is the dynamic. If the middle school is moved, that will no longer be the dynamic. And it's really hard for people in the Dixon neighborhood to have outsiders tell them that there's probably something else better that could be put there to make that neighborhood better. What is it? There's lots of options that have been proposed to us, but Dixon neighbors have not been convinced that there is something better. With a middle school, you have a community center and a middle school. With a community center, you have a community center. The Dixon neighbors and the Dixon organization, or the Dixon neighbors know that they moved there because of a middle school and an elementary school. There isn't anything better. And to promise something else is like giving us a pinky promise that only breaks our pinky. We voted for a middle school to remain there, and we're pretty sure that we will make that clear again. It's also sad that a lot of times the people who are not at community meetings are the people that it will affect them the most. It's the single parents who rely on their middle school age kids to walk their elementary school kids home in their neighborhood. Those people can't be at the education meetings and these sort of meetings. That is the neighborhood that is going to be affected the most. My neighbors, the Dixon neighbors, are persistent, patient, and permanent in their position. Our non-negotiables and expectations for our neighborhood are safety, neighborly kindness, and Dixon Middle School and Timpanogos remaining as the sentinel centerpieces of our community. And all are welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next is Annie Ducher. Ducher, thank you. I will bring her back. If you came and you want to add anything that hasn't been said, there is a paper up front here that you can fill out that needs to be given to Bonnie for public input. All right, Ava Carrillo.
She'll be back in 10 minutes.
All right. Shannon Bingham.
Thank you, board members. We've had lots of discussions, and I'm grateful for your time. I've been in this discussion since probably around 2012, when Dave Harding talked with me about Dixon Middle School most likely coming up for a bond sometime in the next several years. I was chosen to be on the FAC committee, which I was really grateful for because I was able to see this process from the very beginning. I have a son at Timpanogos Elementary School and a daughter who just started 7th grade at Dixon Middle School and a son in high school at Provo High. We've lived in the Timpanogos neighborhood for over 20 years, and our family has served to make and improve our neighborhood and our city, make it a better place. After years of this Dixon discussion, so many conversations with city council members, board members, city planners, teachers, administration at the school, people from all over the city. I think we're all ready for this conversation to come to an end. In the beginning, I was all about preserving the historic structure. On the Facility Advisory Committee, I said I don't want to see anything happen to this building until a feasibility study is done. And thankfully, Mr. Rattel and Mark Wheeler and the board asked for a feasibility study to be done. Through talking with architects and hashing it out, we realized that it's not a feasible option to keep the historic portion. The most economically, the fiscally responsible thing to do is to rebuild a new school on the north end of campus. And as hard as that will be for us to see the historic building go, we understand that that is what needs to happen in order to keep a middle school on the Dixon site, which is the most important thing that happens here, keeping the middle school there where it's been for 90 years. Since the beginning of time, schools and churches have been at the heart of a community. Any city that you look at, anywhere in the world, at the heart of the city is a school and a church, and everything radiates out from that. We can't lose our middle school without suffering a negative impact throughout that area. Citizens who want to keep Dixon in Dixon will get the signatures needed if there is a vote to move Dixon out of Dixon. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Lott.
Hi there. I am a little bit nervous talking to you today because
I think we're all passionate about our children, and we're all passionate about them having the best experience. The thing we haven't talked about at all tonight is education. And I feel like you're here because you have a responsibility to educate our children. And I feel like the best place to give them the best education is on the new site. So we talk about being able to expand on the new site because it has a bigger space, and it's true, it does. We can have a one-level building, we can have green fields. We can increase the numbers by a few years if we have to, but that's not my goal. I totally agree with Gina that we shouldn't be pushing the numbers, but we could if we had to without having to scramble to build a new school. But what we can do is when we move into the next 90 years of educating our children, we can make changes because there's room to make changes. 90 years ago, there was no way that they could have foreseen the way that our children would be educated today, right? Like they could not have anticipated the things that our children are doing now in today's education. And there's no way we can see how we will need to educate our children best in 90 years. So maybe we won't need to use this school for 90 years, but if history repeats itself, we will, and we need to prepare for that. So I think we need to focus that there is education at hand, not just a community. And I'm going to say it again, I will stand with the Save Dixon folks every day of the week to make sure their community remains intact. I just don't think that the best thing for all of the students feeding into Dixon is to keep that school there. The other thing I'm going to add to this is I feel like my children are being held hostage. They will stay in an unsafe school as we push this bond down the road. I know that's a risk, but I, deep within my soul, cannot say, let's keep the school where it is. Let's give the kids less than what we can give them so that we can rebuild a school more quickly. I hate that that's how it is, but that is where we are. And it's, I feel like we're keeping kids in an unsafe school or using them, holding them hostage, which is super unfortunate. I also want to address, you guys spoke about it earlier in your meeting that I sat in on, but there will be unforeseen costs either direction. And I think that when we share them, we need to share both. We need to share the cost of rebuilding on site because there's a lot of things that aren't listed in the equal amount bond prices. I think there are those costs in both directions, and I think we need to make sure that we're sharing them on both directions. But I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking care of our kids and educating them well and sitting in these chairs again to do this hard job. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Annie Dushare. Thank you.
Thank you for all of your service. From someone that likes to work in the school system, I really, really appreciate all that you do. So I am a past two-time PTA president at Dixon and an alumni, do I dare say it, 28 years ago of Dixon. So I used to drive past Fair and go to Dixon from Oak Hills. So anyhow, Katie kind of covered everything. The only thing that just kind of keeps me up at night is a 4-story school. It really doesn't sit right. I don't understand. We would be the guinea pig because there's no 4-story middle school in all of Utah County. And today there was a evacuation for a fire drill. I guess there was a fire that was started in a garbage can. So it does happen. How much safer is it to evacuate from a 1-story building versus a 4-story? How do we monitor the kids? How do we discipline the kids? I just feel like there's a lot of concerns, and that's my big hang up. There are so many reasons why I feel like it's advantageous to move to the new site, but that's the one that really kind of keeps me up. So anyhow, thank you again.
Thank you. Ava Carrillo? Carrillo? Not back yet? Okay. Marie Patrick?
Thank you, school board members. I just have a little bit to add about, I I've been the PTA president at Dixon twice and the treasurer for the remaining 6 years that I've had students at Dixon. So I'm down there on a weekly basis. I volunteer and spend a lot of time in Dixon. I kind of know the vibe down there and what the administrators and faculties find very important to them. They're the ones that are there doing all the grunt work, being with the students, teaching them, educating them. And I've spent a lot of time talking to them about what their wishes and wants are. They obviously don't, like, the location isn't as much a big deal as the actual structure for them. The principal was explaining to me that he's toured lots of buildings, and you can step out of your office and you can have a view of most things that are going on without having to go to several different areas of the school, and how awesome that would be. And they're just highly concerned about managing the students, the safety of kids. I don't know if I've spent a lot of time volunteering their hall monitoring during lunch and class breaks. And if you didn't have someone on every stairwell on a 4-story building, it would be a total disaster nightmare. So that's my concern. I have no ulterior motive for benefits for where I live. Where I live, it's not by either site where the school would be built. One area losing a middle school, another area would gain and benefit from having the middle school in their area. So I don't see that is something that, a group of people in Provo are more important to have a middle school than another group of people that live in another area of the city. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Emily Harrison.
Hi, thank you so much. Just wanted to say that I feel like the Timpanogos neighborhood is a neighborhood, but the Dixon Middle School represents a lot of neighborhoods. And I feel like that moving it to a site that can benefit a lot of people for 60 years down the road, even my own grandchildren maybe would be able to attend that school. I think that would be the best option. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Chase.
Hello, board members. I spent most of today talking to every school district along the Wasatch Front and finding out a little about their safe routes to school plans. The only schools I could find that had a large number of students, or any students at all, that had to cross at-grade railroad crossings on their safe routes plans were 2 middle schools in Salt Lake. Nobody else along the Wasatch Front has that arrangement. Putting the middle school at the footprinter site, you currently bus everyone across the railroad tracks coming the other way. You would have hundreds of students crossing the railroad tracks at-grade railroad crossings that are both used heavily for both freight and the front runner. The neighborhoods that you're requiring to do that, here's some stats for Timpanogos Elementary. 66% of the students are ethnic minorities at Timpanogos Elementary. 48% of the students at Timpanogos are English language learner families, where English is not the primary language spoken in their home. 83% is economically disadvantaged. Moving the middle school would put Provo far and away the leader in the state of making poor kids cross the railroad tracks on foot every single day. When we're deciding where our schools and our community institutions should go, we need to build on the strengths of our community that are already there. There's been almost 100 years of institutional, government, personal, family decisions and investments in the community based on being near a middle school and elementary school. Taking a middle school synergizes with the neighborhood and the surrounding community in the Dixon neighborhood in a way that it never will without another 100 years at the West Provo site. We, as the Save Dixon group, we've been willing to compromise on almost every part of this. We've been compromising on the historic preservation, on the type of school, on the number of schools, but we've never been willing to compromise on keeping a middle school there. And we will continue to be uncompromising in that. If we have to delay these actions to get a middle school to remain a center of our community, we will do that. Thank you for your work on this issue. I know we've all spent a lot of time on it, and hopefully we can come to a conclusion soon where we have safe schools for all our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. James Cavens.
Thank you, school board members. I am not a long-term Dixon resident. I moved there about 5 years ago, but I do have a fair amount of experience with schools. My wife and I were educators in McCall-Donnelly School District up in Idaho, and had some experience with dealing with both very high-end and very low-end economic situations and the fallout from those things. We found living there, it was a spread out school district, not like this one that's very, very condensed comparably. But we found that in our time there, that those students who would be considered economically disadvantaged had a very difficult time participating because of that lack of resources to get to school for activities, to be a part of that. To move Dixon from the area that is concentrated most highly with economic disadvantaged people would be, I think, a very large mistake. I watch regularly, as was mentioned earlier, older middle school age children taking their siblings home from the elementary school, and sometimes being the only caretaker because of the fact that both parents work and are not home during that period of time. When you have a concentration of that situation, it makes sense to me that you keep a school close to there. It also historically has not been a good situation for communities to move major resources like schools out of inner city neighborhoods. It has a blighting effect on those inner city neighborhoods, and it's difficult to reconstruct them over time. And when it is, it's usually gentrified, and the people who originally moved there had to move out because the gentrification around them made it so they couldn't afford to live there anymore. I think it's a very important thing that we look to the least among us, and I don't mean least in worth, but least in resources and ability to take things as very highly as we make this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Taylor.
Members of the school board, thank you so much for your time in service. It takes a lot, and I applaud all of you for your diligence in addressing this issue. Let me say just a couple points. One, I hope we consider facts over fear. I know we get save the children will die arguments. I know there's building codes. I know there's urban examples elsewhere of very safe schools that have addressed this issue, and children aren't going to die at the drop of a hat. So I don't have all the facts. I haven't researched it. So that's an assumption that there are safe schools that have addressed this issue, and I invite you to look into that. I think my main point tonight is not undermining your cash cow. Okay, downtown properties on a per value per acre basis generate more property tax to the school board than a per acre basis elsewhere in the community. Why is that? That's because downtown is an asset-rich environment. These homes are worth more per acre than elsewhere because of the assets around them. This gentleman before me talked about a blighting effect. Removing assets will continue to undermine the value of one of your number one revenue producing neighborhoods on a per acre basis. The rest of the city benefits from that. Downtown benefits from that. Please consider the fiscal impact on the community in this deliberation. The other thing that I noticed that, and I want to say this, another way to think about it is don't cannibalize yourself from a revenue perspective. The other thing I noticed on the agenda is item C here is to consider adoption of a resolution authorizing issuance of leased revenue bonds. Now, I come into this with 30 minutes of warning, so my understanding of revenue bond is they are not general obligation bonds. They don't have to be approved by the voters. They can be approved by this board unilaterally. I don't think that's been communicated to me, and so I'm assuming many others may be in the same boat. It doesn't seem very transparent, and I invite you that if you are going to do this route, to explain very clearly that intention. And also, I couldn't find anything in the budget about lease revenues. How much is it? What buildings are being leased? What are you using as collateral on this bond? I think that information needs to be put forward, straight tripping. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Van Wagner.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. I'm just here as well to voice my support in keeping Dixon at its current location. My 4 children are at Timpanogos. Well, now my oldest is going to Dixon, and we have choiced into Dixon as opposed to Centennial because my kids, and we've loved being a part of the Timpanogos community. And I think I just echo what has been said from a planning perspective, from a community perspective, and I understand the idea that, well, if you move this school, that another area gains a school, but I think the reality is this school has been here. It'd be different if we were just building a school, but it's moving a school, and I think that is important to consider, and I think to consider the area in which it will be leaving. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea Pace.
First of all, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm just a concerned citizen. I actually am not going to be directly affected by the Dixon or the new footprinter site, but I am concerned about this decision because of many reasons. And I feel like I would like to know why it's an either or and why we can't, instead of picking sides, compromise. Specifically, I know I've sent this to most of you, if not all of you. I think that why not consider compromise of 3 middle schools? We have 3 sites, and if we have money to build one huge large school, why don't we split that and give it to 2 smaller schools? That way, both Dixon and the west side can have a middle school in proximity to their students, and it would also benefit Centennial students, which is where my kids go, because it would decrease the number of students per grade. Right now, they have 1,200 students built for a 600 student body. And I think with the current demographics, not future demographics, which I know was discussed in the business meeting, we have enough kids to justify 3 middle schools now. We don't need 10,000 new students. We don't need 1.5 increase like Alpine School District. We need 3 middle schools for our current demographic middle schools. And this way we could allow Dixon to stay where it's been. My own father attended there, and I hate to see it moved. We could allow a site on the west for those students who live there, and it would be in proximity to them, and would help Centennial students who honestly, I believe it would be a better transition to go from elementary school to middle school from like 200 kids per grade, 400 in your middle school, and then 600 per grade in your high school. Right now, we're jumping from 200 kids in an elementary school all the way up to 600 in your middle school. I think that's a huge jump, and it's really discombobulating to those middle school kids. My own kids suffer from mental health issues at times, and it's really difficult for them in such a large school. I also believe that there's many factors, as I know, that come into this decision, and I hope that money is not the ultimate factor. I know it's a big factor, but I think it's important to consider all the community, not just Dixon, not just the west side, not just Centennial, include the whole city. It would help everybody. And I believe that it could help, we would save on busing costs by having 3 middle schools. And I also think that, that it would help with mental health. It would help retain a historical landmark, whether we keep the historical portion or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Austin Taylor.
Hey, thank you all for being on the board and putting in countless hours. I know that it's hard work and it's never fun to receive lots of complaints from the public, so I appreciate it. I live across the street from Dixon Middle School. I appreciate the life and the energy it brings. But what I want to say is this is not about me. This is not about the Dixon neighborhood. You've heard people from all over the city say that they want to keep the school where it is. It's a majority opinion of people who come to these meetings and give public comment. They want to see the middle school rebuilt on site. So when we look at the options you guys are faced with, you know, this is about the students, right? With the 2 options that you're looking at, both of these schools would be 175,000 square feet. They would both come at the same cost. They could offer the same classes, the same opportunity to students, maybe 1 or 2 different sports. But what's different about these 2 options is your West Provo school will benefit with more parking lots and more grass, which is something, in my opinion, Provo has too much of and we don't need more of. What the rebuilding on site gives us is it gives opportunity to the students who need it most. The neighborhood around Dixon has a $36,000 median household income in its census block. Around Footprinter is a $58,000 median household income. At Timpanogos Middle School, there's a 66% minority population, 48% of which are English learning households. It's very clear which population needs access to the middle school more. And this is about planning for your future. As a board, you have the opportunity and you have the calling to plan for the future of Provo. By 2060, Utah County will have the same population of Salt Lake County. We're going to double in size. In Central Provo, we're going to grow just as much as in West Provo. You've seen developments of Highline Square, 400 Element, Liberty Center, 200 City View, Millrace, Harris Block. These are all several hundred unit multifamily developments with apartments and condos that families live in. These people have children. Same in West Provo. We've got hundreds of acres of greenfield facing development, which is not ready yet. Infrastructure is coming. And so I'm echoing the same thing that the majority of people who come to these meetings is echoing. Rebuild Dixon on site and hold the Footprinter site until the time is right, when the population has grown enough in West Provo to justify 3 middle schools. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Celeste Kennard.
Hi, I come here representing a few different things. One is I'm the Waukee neighborhood chair, and I've been involved in Provo city politics and school board for a very long time. In fact, more than all the faces I see here. And so I just wanted to state I've been involved in a lot of the neighborhood plans that are made for the downtown neighborhood, and they all emphasize historic things, walkability, bikeability, all those things. So I'm just coming as like stating what the downtown area in general, all of those neighborhoods have that in common. And to just bring up very quickly that we recently had a big win in the Joaquin neighborhood with the Amanda Knight Hall, because they found a developer, the Mountain Classic Real Estate, that has a whole business model of using grants and historic preservation from the federal government and private entities to really improve the quality of rebuilds and the success of, I mean, that Amanda Knight Hall is not something that you're worried about falling down. It really isn't. Okay, then I come as the walking PTA president for 5 years. So I've seen this rodeo before. During the 2000s, the downtown neighborhoods lost Joaquin, Mazer, Fair, and then more recently Provo High. So 4 of the 5 schools that have been closed in the Provo district have come from the center of the city. I think that's a problem because, especially because of the density here and the, like some other people have mentioned, some of the at-risk populations. I'd also say from an education perspective that being close to BYU and several places that are really good field trip items like BYU, downtown Provo, businesses are where they're close, and it's easier to get like BYU volunteers in the classroom. That's a great advantage of leaving Dixon where it is, especially since the West Side doesn't have to lose a school. They can still have one. There's still land there. There won't be land that you can buy here later. And I think that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. David Harding.
I appreciate the difficult decisions that you have and for the time and care and interest that you put into these, and just thank you for your service to our city and our students. I wrote you earlier today. It was kind of last minute, but I'll try to keep this a little bit briefer because hopefully you've been able to read that. I am a strong proponent of public education and feel strongly about the need to provide our students with the best education possible. And I'm also a strong advocate for healthy, vibrant communities. And fortunately, in my view, this question doesn't pit those two together, but there's a decision that's in the best interest of both of those. The Deseret News editorial board published a letter that talks through the problems that many great American cities are facing, and went through the difficulties being felt in inner cities, and their conclusion, their request, their advice to local leaders is to continue to invest family-friendly infrastructure in the core of cities. And by doing so, you can continue to attract families, and that will strengthen these communities and prevent the blight and the rot and decay that we see in some cities across the country. And you could even point to the largest city in Utah and some of the difficulties that they're feeling in the center of their town. We don't have that yet in Provo, but we are densifying. We are building those condos that were mentioned earlier. We are densifying in the center of the city, and the question is will we be able to continue to attract families that will strengthen the area, or are we not going to be able to attract families? Fair Middle School was replaced by Centennial. Provo High was moved from the center of the city out to the edge of development, and now we're considering Dixon. At some point, we're going it's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we say, well, we're going to move the schools out because the kids aren't going to come. Well, you move the schools out and the kids aren't going to come. So I ask that you keep Dixon where it's at, and if we have ideas about, you know, 1st through 8th grade schools and whatnot, we can do that, but it doesn't have to be here. It can be in the other areas that are still growing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Christopher Hales.
Hello, and thank you. I just wanted to echo what others have said, that the public has been pretty clear in what they want with the bond and voting out certain board members. And I also wanted to echo what Austin mentioned, that Utah County is doubling in size in my lifetime, and we will likely need a 3rd school. But I also want to add that as a lifelong resident of Joaquin neighborhood, Fair Middle School closed 3 years before I was to attend. So my older siblings were able to enjoy a 600-person school. But when my time came to go to middle school, I lost a 5-minute walk and gained a 20-minute morning commute to go to a 1,200-person school. Losing these properties in downtown Provo really, really harms us. And I feel like so often in Utah and Provo broadly, we just focus on the not high dense, not downtown, just the more affluent single-family neighborhoods. And when we give up these properties, we're not able to get them back. I think of like Joaquin. When we sold Joaquin, it became a mega development that did not enhance Joaquin at all, and I would hate to see it similar for Dixon. As someone who lost a school and gained a long commute, I just want to advocate for these children who are from lower income families that are suddenly getting that large burden that I got as a teenager. And just encourage you to please listen to the public, listen to the bond, listen to the majority of voices here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll try one more time. Ava Caguillo.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for being here and being willing to listen to the community. Because we are all here because we want the best interest for the whole. And the only, in my mind, and in the research that I've done, the only way to do that is by helping the most vulnerable and poor and low-income families. And I'm here to represent that population. I'm a single mom. I have 4 kids. I have 2 kids in Dixon currently. They walk home every day. And we are a hard-working people, but we have an uphill battle with a lot of hurdles. And so don't make another, or don't provide another hurdle for us by moving Dixon. This is helping us keep our kids in school. We know that the key to get out of that level of living is education. I'm grateful I was able to get a master's degree, and I hope my kids do better than me and go for PhDs. But we cannot do that or hope for that if we don't put this population in our minds. Our chain is as strong as our weakest link. And so I played with you to put that in the front mind. Is that the way you say it? In your front part of your brain, your mind. Think of us first. Everybody else is doing okay. And we want to do okay and be up with you. But if you move Dixon, you're just making it harder. Like I say, we want our kids to succeed. We're working hard, we're providing, we're trying, and we're making it. Not easy, but it's happening. So may God guide you and inspire you to make the right choice. Like you already heard a lot of people, what they want. Let's keep listening and acting accordingly. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Angela Morick.
Good evening. I apologize for my very poor dress, but I ran over here because I wanted to weigh in. I live in the northeast part of Provo, and my children went to Timpview High School. A little background, I have an education degree in secondary and elementary education, so I come to you from that perspective. I really appreciate what the last mother just said, and basically that's what I'm here to talk about. There have been a lot of awesome comments about the financials, why move, not move, potential third school footprint. The reason we have public school is because of the children and the families. You serve the families. We have to remember the law. It's in parento loco. You represent the families, and the families don't represent you. And I think we need to take into consideration the lowest common denominator of these people who are here. Like she said, you're going to put another hurdle. We want parent involvement in our schools. And if you make it that they have to get further there, what's the chances? They're working 1, 2, 3 jobs, and then there's a school activity and they have to get in a car. Maybe they don't have a car to get there. We want our parents involved. We don't want to be like all these other school districts across the United States that are taking away parental rights to have a say in their children's education. Proximity makes a difference. It also makes a community, and it's also a place of gathering, not just for school functions, but for other functions. You take a school out of a neighborhood, and you take the availability of those parents to be involved with their children. I'm a huge advocate of parental involvement. If there is one parent who wants to be involved in their children's education and be down at school, we need to make that door wide open and possible for them to be there and not a hindrance. And so I really encourage you to keep a public school there. And I just want to say, Provo High School, I think whatever, it's a done deal. It was sold to BYU. But have you looked at what's happened to that property? It used to be a community place where people could go, use the track, use the pool. Now there's just chains all over that place. BYU is a poor neighbor, another subject for another time. But that was a place, like Dave Harding was saying, that was part of a community right there, and now it's on the fringes of the city. And I don't want to see that happen to this neighborhood of Dixon Middle School. Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia Castaneda.
Hello. This is my first time I have been in an event like this. So I am here to support Dixon Middle School to stay in our neighborhood. I have 2 kids. When my son was in middle school, he was going to a small school, and he was learning good. He was happy there. We were in Georgia, in Atlanta, but then he moved to a high school, and it was a bigger school, like 4 level, and he was not happy there. He was not learning. He came home crying because it was too big. It was too much for him. So my husband and I and my daughter, we had to do a decision to move from Atlanta to northern Georgia to a smaller school where my son could get a better education. We did, and my son actually was learning better. He got along with his classmate, and he was happier, and he was able to graduate and get a better education. So I'm here to support that Dixon Middle School stay here in the neighborhood. It's better for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Kimberly Lamb.
Hi, thanks for your time. This is a really difficult issue. It's really hard for me because I attended Dixon Junior High and I love it, and we don't want to destroy neighborhoods. None of us are here to destroy neighborhoods. Obviously, we want to keep neighborhoods intact and take care of people. But I think it is important to recognize that we should not sacrifice the greater good for the good of for the good of one small community. And we really do need to think about what is best for the entire city and not necessarily for one small neighborhood. But I do want to say that I think that 3 schools is kind of necessary and important and is something that we do need to think about. If we do move to the new west site, keeping the Dixon site as a future potential site for a school would be a really good decision to be able to do that. And I don't see how we can possibly have convinced the citizens of Provo to pass a bond to do through 3 schools. But honestly, if we could do that, that would be ideal. I teach at a small school. I teach at UCAS, and smaller schools mean better education. We would be much better off to have 3 smaller schools than 2 gigantic schools. The education of our children would be better. It's something we really do need to think about instead of getting bigger, is try to educate our children in a way that's actually, the research shows that smaller schools give you better education, and we really need to think about that. One thing that I would like to bring up about the site is I don't think that we've talked about the Boulders community and how that's actually the lowest socioeconomic community in Provo, which would be actually closer to the new site than to the Dixon site. And we should think about that community as well, and how having a new school in the West End would actually benefit that really high-risk population. If we're going to talk about high-risk populations, we ought to think about all of the high-risk populations that we have in Provo, not just the Dixon neighborhood at-risk students, but the at-risk students that we have in that neighborhood, which would benefit from a new West End school. Thank you.
I didn't receive any other further papers. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? I just wanted to say thank you to those of you who came tonight. I really appreciate hearing from you and the civility that was taking place here tonight. I truly appreciate it. We hear you. We understand that this is not a back and forth conversation, but we do hear what you're saying, and we appreciate those thoughts that you bring to us as a board. We're going to close the section of public input and move on. Give me just a second. Okay. Our first business item tonight is a motion to surplus Wasatch property. Superintendent Rattel, will you explain what surplusing a property is?
So, as a public entity, we are required to follow many laws. And one of them is when we have a piece of property that we may want to divest ourselves of, that we have to declare it to be surplus for a period of time. This does not mean that there's a deal in place. There is not. It does not mean that there is an offer or a guarantee that the property will be sold. It simply allows that potential to happen should it present itself. We have been, well, when I say we, I mean Mark Wheeler and his team have been developing plans for the site that we currently own and are on for Wasatch, and then some skeletal plans for a site that is owned by another entity. But we're not investing much time in that right now for the reason that we don't own it and we don't know that we will. But in order to potentially make that move to that preferred site, we would have to liquidate the current Wasatch site. We've had a community meeting over there. It was well attended, lots of good feedback, and we're just trying to figure out how to move ahead. There is nothing, please hear me, there is nothing in place where we're going to guarantee that Wasatch is going to close. This is just a formality that we have to go through according to state law if we want to consider another option. Okay, did I miss anything?
Wasatch is definitely not going to close. I'm surprised you even use the word. So this is a formality so we can investigate the potentials of the best possible future that we're looking for. And so that's what we're trying to do. With that, I would move that we approve the surplus of the Wasatch property. That we are that is, again, just an indication that we are in serious consideration of 2 possibilities.
Okay. Motion made by Board Member Jensen. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second by Board Member, I just spaced.
Bryson.
Thank you, Bryson, I know you. Is there any further comment or discussion about this motion?
So you definitely sold it? Is that what I heard?
No, I hope we have not gotten to that point yet. Any other further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor indicate with aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All right, the next one is a possible motion on Dixon. I think we should start with, if somebody wants to start with a motion on this, and then we can start discussion following that.
I would like to move that we select the footprinter site for the rebuild of Dixon Middle School.
Motion made by Board Member Partridge. Is there a second?
I would like to amend that motion. I would like to move the site of a new middle school in Provo to the site that provides the least ongoing transportation cost. In other words, the most walkable site, and is in proximity to the highest number of economically disadvantaged students. I want that in the motion because we hear percentages. The highest percentage of students is at Timpanogos, but the highest number of economic students is in a different place. It's in a different place. And I believe you that we should take care. And so absolutely, walkability, we should put it in the motion. We should have the school with its, that is in proximity to the highest number, not percentage, neighborhood, density, highest number of actual people, and is and provides for the lowest ongoing transportation costs, meaning we are investing in people walking to school and being close to their school. That happens to be the footprinter site. That means that we'll need to, there are other motions that come along, but my amendment would be to include those two things and transportation in the motion.
So can you state it for us?
We would place a middle school in proximity to the highest number of economically impacted students and the location that provides the lowest cost of ongoing transportation costs.
All right, is there a second to the amendment?
Well, in other words, the fewest buses.
So can you repeat it for me one more time so I can write it up?
Yeah, hold on, let's have McKay repeat this one more time, because now, mind you, we're voting on the amendment and then on the motion, so.
So the lowest cost of ongoing transportation costs and the proximity to the highest number of economically, and not percentage density of those students, but the highest number of those students.
I think that's way too confusing. I think we need to choose a site like that. So if
the public really wants to take care of our lowest income students, and they want a walkable neighborhood, and I believe them. I really believe them. We should tell them what we're trying to accomplish, and that happens to be in. They will go through this. They will find this out. Where is that? Where does that happen? Now we'll talk about other things, but that happens to be, and we'll comment, and there'll be more comment. But I guess that's my amendment to the motion.
All right, is there a second to the amendment to the motion? I will second the amendment. So now, is there any discussion on the amendment?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Terry.
Where's this data? I want to see it. I've never seen anything like this ever. McKay.
So
where's this? Who sits there? Because those who go to Franklin are also one of those high number kids.
And doesn't it?
They're also in the Dixon area.
And does that? Are they in
where
proximity to which location from Franklin?
Dixon is closer.
Are those So all the students, including the ones that go to Spring Creek. So
Spring Creek goes to Centennial, so they don't get included.
But that doesn't have to always be that way.
So show us the numbers.
We're trying to serve the right students. We're trying to serve the right students, right?
Yes, but where's this number? Like, I want to see the actual numbers with the actual kids, because this.
But that if it's not the right number, then we need to choose another. It needs to be a different location.
So
I feel on the question of the amendment, I think what we're voting on needs to be very clear, and I agree with Gina, a location, and then once we've decided what we're voting on, then we can make our points to it and make it very clear to the public what you're bringing up, what other things will be brought up. But I think as far as what we need to vote on, it needs to be crystal clear that it cannot be debated what we intend.
And I mean, I remember we went through this debate 2 years ago, and the data is super, super muddy. Right. Because you look at that plot map, and it's not clear which one has more at-risk students, because it's super close. And do you say, okay, we're gonna use the train tracks as the border? And if you use the train tracks as the border, then the current site, the numbers goes better that way. But if you use, if you just draw circles, then Footprinters has a little bit better numbers. And so there's so many categories that it's and so many different factors that it's really hard to get a good answer for that. And I just worry that we'll be in a place where we're fighting over definitions instead of picking a site and then fighting over definitions.
So how about okay, we'll go. It can be just the site, but we should be clear that when it comes to proximity, when it comes to ongoing transportation, which one will actually require more buses? There's one. We'll have other motions about high-risk routes and things that we'll want to do, but we should at least acknowledge what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to do the best for our community, and that's one thing. But I'll concede that if it's just that our recommendation, if our recommendation is that the new location, that the new middle school be constructed at Dixon Middle School, and then we can take comment.
Okay, well, let's vote on your current amendment.
There was not a second.
No, I seconded it.
Oh.
So we need to take a vote on that. All those in favor of the amendment to the original motion, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay, it's 1-6. So the amendment
Sorry, McKay.
doesn't
You're
pass.
It's all good.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to Jennifer's original motion. Can you restate that, Jennifer?
I move that we select the Footprinter site for the rebuild of Dixon Middle School.
Okay, so motion made by Board Member Partridge. Is there a second?
That needs to be restated because it will not be rebuilt on the Footprinter site. It's a brand new school.
Okay. Do you want to restate that?
I move that we select the Footprinter site for
a new middle school.
A new middle school.
A new middle school.
Okay, so motion made by Board Member Partridge.
Well, it is rebuilding Dixon Middle School. It's just in a new
not.
location.
If you're going to rebuild Dixon, you're going to do it on site.
Okay, so the motion is that we move.
I move that we select the Footprinter site for the rebuild of a new West Side Middle School.
Okay.
You put rebuild in there and not
No, she said build.
She's sticking with it.
She said new build.
Okay.
So, okay, is there a second?
Okay, let me try one more time.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I move that we select the Footprinter site for the building of a new West Side Middle School.
Okay, motion made by Board Member Partridge. Is there a second? I will second it. Okay, now is there any further discussion on this motion? Okay.
A lot.
Okay, so whoever wants to start.
Which side?
Which side?
Do you want to go down? Or?
Gina, do you want to start?
Sure.
Okay.
everybody's time is precious. I'm not going to reiterate both sides of the argument or even the art side of the argument that I agree with and that I'm going to vote with. I think that everybody on both sides spoke very well, and I agree with Melanie that it was very civil. Everything was very civil, and I appreciate that because it's not necessarily common today. And so I'm just going to make a statement about where I think the school needs to be, and I think that what everybody has said here today will speak for me. So the school board's rallying cry in the 2019 bond, I was not on the board at that time, was for safe schools. The fastest and least expensive way to a safe Dixon is to rebuild it on site. This option will keep the school within walking distance of our most disadvantaged families. I would have to talk to McKay about that, but I'm going to stick with what I've got because that's a big surprise to me, and it would also require boundary changes. And I know that the board, I haven't done boundary changes, but whenever I say boundary changes, the board members start to twitch. So I just want to point out that that's going to be boundary changes, right? If we're going to go that direction. But it's, in my opinion, keeping it on site keeps it within walking distance of our most disadvantaged families and will not require them to find transportation or to have their children walk over train tracks and under a freeway to get to school. I don't have anything against green space. I love grass. I actually like a good parking spot too. I will sometimes drive around a parking lot to find the closest parking spot. I have nothing against those things. As I mentioned in the previous meeting, I don't want the schools bigger. I think there have been some good arguments made for that. I think we need smaller schools rather than bigger schools. But I cannot prioritize green space and parking lots over our most at-risk families or the families who have chosen to live in central Provo because of the amenities and the walkability and all of those things. I grew up in the Dixon neighborhood. I did not attend Dixon or any middle school. We lived outside of the country. I've heard that that's a very fortunate thing for me that I did not experience middle school or junior high. But I grew up in this neighborhood. The vast majority of my life has been in this neighborhood. My personal preference is to rebuild the school on site, but I could get behind moving the school if I thought that the community that I represent, as well as the city as a whole, would support it. But the results of the 2019 and 2020 elections, I think have made, and just all of the conversations I've had and the people who have contacted me, which, yeah, no, I won't get into that, but the numerous emails and the conversations I've had with people all over the city, and we've people who here tonight who are not from our neighborhood who are here to advocate to keep the school where it is. It indicates to me that the city is not behind moving the school to the footprinter site. As I mentioned before, I could get behind moving it, even though it's my personal preference to keep it where it is, but I feel like if we choose to move it, we choose to delay and delay and delay. And if safe schools really is what we want, the fastest way to get our kids into a safe school is to vote to keep it on site. So the other thing I want to mention is if we move the school, especially because there's so, in my opinion, there's so much sentiment to move the school, we're going to be sacrificing more trust and more goodwill within the community. Like, I've talked to so many people when I was canvassing to get this seat who feel betrayed. They feel betrayed for a variety of decisions. We have a lot of bonds that are going to be coming up. We're going to need the community to be behind us. I don't think we will get that if we choose to move the school. So that's my.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
All right. Well, I've studied this ever since I was a member of the Facilities Advisory Committee as just a regular citizen back in 2013. And I remember thinking at the time, when we get to rebuilding Dixon, I want to see we can do everything possible to keep it in its location for so many reasons. I feel that my role is to study every angle of it and make the best decision. And as I've studied it, I realize that there are good people on both sides of this issue who are doing what they feel, or siding with what they feel is the best decision, because it comes down to which of the elements you place the most value, and different members of the community have different things that they emphasize more than the others. And so I've actually lost sleep this last week thinking about no matter which way we vote tonight, the vote is only going to add to division in our community, which frustrates me. And I just hope whichever way it goes, even if it's not the way, I am voting that we can unite as a community and move forward, so that the fastest way to get our kids in a new school is whatever the decision is, and that we don't delay it any longer. I also have a lot of sympathy for, I try to put myself in the place of those who live near the school currently. If a middle school were near me, and it was being talked about being moved, I would do everything I could to keep it near me. I can see the value that it adds, and I totally understand where you're coming from. For me, though, as I've studied it, I just feel there's so many overwhelming reasons to move it, that the concerns don't outweigh all the benefits, and a lot of those concerns we can work with and overcome. I appreciate the new site is 3 times larger, and that just gives us so many more options, not only now, but for our future. In fact, the only reason we're considering moving the school is because the site is so small that it doesn't give us the options that we would like to have for a new school now, and it makes the rebuild on site very difficult. At a larger site now, then when they have to go rebuild many, many decades in the future, they're going to have a lot more options of that. As we've been discussing parking with Timpview, just for their temporary issues, I just kept thinking with Dixon, whatever we decide is a 50, 60, 70-year decision. I think we want to welcome families and parents to the school, to our visitors. We want safety for drop-off and pickup with our buses and with those who are walking, and it's just more difficult on the current site. I looked around when we went to Provo High School's graduation this year. It was on site at Provo High, and just looking at that site, that the students could have so much pride in at that nice, beautiful school. And I know that any school site is going to be, or the rebuild will be better either way, but I just feel there's going to be so many more amenities at a new, larger site that the school children can take pride in. If we were just needing a new middle school and didn't already have a property, and we needed to go look to buy property, we wouldn't consider a site anywhere under 15 acres, let alone 8 acres. And when I thought about that, I thought that makes it very compelling of all the reasons why a new site is better. My experience living in Southeast Provo, I'm in the Centennial and Timpview boundaries, but we are a 10 to 15 minute drive from those schools. There are plenty of low-income people in my part of town, and it really frustrates me in my boundary when the families who live near that middle school and that high school treat it as if it's their school. It is our school, and my kids are just as much a part of that community as the people who live right next to it. And so as I apply that to Dixon, I feel really strongly that I need to look out for all the students in the whole Dixon boundary, and that the location of the school is less important than what we can provide at that school, and I feel we can provide more at the new location. As far as proximity goes, we can add buses for those who need the accessibility. I've heard some people express the concern about low-income families at the new site being able to get to school. I asked Centennial, because the low-income families at Centennial aren't in a walkable area, and the principal there said he's been there for 10 years and has never seen an issue with the low-income students having any harder time getting to school than the kids who live closer. I think change can be hard, but we can adjust and adapt and find ways to be able to get everybody to school. As was said earlier, the new site is also near lots of other low-income students who have had to adapt and to bus, and these low-income students can have that benefit now to be able to walk to their school. I do care about all of our students, including our low-income students, and I do feel that everybody will benefit the most from the amenities at the larger site. I think this is secondary, but people have brought up the infrastructure at the new location. The city is working on that. And again, I feel a 50-year decision needs to be taken into account, and not, like, the infrastructure can be built if that is the best location for it. There's been a lot said about third middle schools, and I'm not sure that I totally believe we're going to need a third middle school, but I agree we need to keep that option open. I will say that I don't feel that smaller schools work with our DLI and our other elective options that we want to give our students. But if we do choose to have a third middle school, it makes sense to me that we rebuild on a clean site now. We build on a clean site now. And then we have what's now currently Dixon property that we could put the third middle school there, and that would be a clean site as well, which just benefits the kids during the process of the rebuild. I've heard a lot of people in the community say, we just celebrated the Provo library, and they say, hey, we'd love to keep the Dixon building too, and it's important to many people in the community, and moving the school gives us the option to restore, or what's the word, rehabilitate, thank you, rehabilitate the historic building and make that a gem of our community. No one on the board has any desire to sell that property, and we want to keep it a vibrant area. And I hope that if we do vote to move to the Footprinter site, that those who are passionate about the neighborhood will pour that passion into helping to get donations so that we could rehabilitate that. Someone said earlier that the majority of people they've talked to want to move the school, which I can understand because they live in that neighborhood. The majority of people I've talked to, once they've heard all the facts or the information, the majority, not all, have said, well, to me, it's obvious to move it. So, you know, I know there's a loud group who wants to keep it where it is, but I do know that that does not represent everybody in Provo or even in the Dixon boundary. I value education for all of our students. I value safety, and I cannot vote to keep a school on an inadequate site when we have a property that's 3 times the size. I know change is hard, but that doesn't mean it's bad. We can adjust, and I think in the end that the new site will be a thing that everybody in the boundary can be proud of. And the last thing I want to say is I don't want to fight, and I hope that nobody in our community wants to fight about this. We are a community. This is a hard decision. We're not going to agree on it. And I hope that we can work together, whatever the decision is, to make that decision the best it can be for our community and come together. Thank you.
Go ahead, Rebecca. Okay. I will make this quick. I agree with most everything that Jennifer has just stated. I do want to also acknowledge the validity on both sides of this argument. I don't disagree with a lot of the things that either side argues for, but it becomes a matter of priorities and what you decide is a higher priority for you. But I also feel like I have to decide what is better for the students. I do want to just state a couple things in addition to what's already been said. I have a hard time believing that a middle school can save or secure a neighborhood. I know that elementary schools have that power, and I don't doubt that a middle school is a draw to a neighborhood for some. But I can't quite fully believe that removing a middle school will doom a neighborhood. And I actually do firmly believe that by keeping that site, by moving the middle school to footprinters and keeping that site available for other things, for other options, that we can actually find ways to serve the neighborhood better than a middle school can. I know there are so many programs within our district that need a permanent home, but I also know there's other things that could really benefit the neighborhood as a whole rather than just the middle school students for those 2 years. And I believe that that's a better option than keeping the middle school there, especially like Jennifer states, that when we've got the option to have a larger piece of property and be able to provide more amenities for the students educationally. I just think it's a better option. I do want to emphasize that a lot of the people who wanted to save Dixon began with the argument of wanting to save the historic building. And that option, that's not an option if we decide to rebuild on site. But it stays an option if we decide to move the middle school. And so I want to leave that on the table because I don't enjoy tearing down historic buildings, and there are some people who claim that Dixon is ugly. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a great looking school, and I would love to save it if we can. And so I would just like to reemphasize that option actually stays on the table if we move the middle school. And lastly, this has been a really incredibly difficult decision to have to make. And not very long ago, I was on the side of keeping it in place, but I had to realize for myself that I was planning to vote that way because I simply wanted to avoid another fight. And I gotta be true to what I really believe in. And to be clear, that's not me asking for a fight. I'm not interested in one, and I'm not encouraging one. And I would hope that if the vote goes to move, we could figure out how to work together without any more delays. Because Jennifer is right. The quickest way to a new middle school is to build it wherever it's voted to go. So just for clarity purposes, I'm not asking for a fight, but I had to be true to what I really believe is right and the best choice for the students of the school district and move the school to footprinters.
Okay. I'll be very short and brief because a lot of the things that Jennifer and Rebecca said, I would echo. I understand that this is a very difficult decision and that there's a lot of good points on both sides. I've been elected as a steward of taxpayer dollars, and I believe that the option to move to footprinters is a better bang for your buck, if you would say that way. But more importantly, I'm in charge of making educational decisions for the students of this district, and I truly believe that the footprinters site is a better option for those children, for all the children of the west side. So I move that it goes to footprinters.
This is hard because I've come to respect all of you. I've come to and I've actually come to your point of view. I started with the bond, then in pure, economic clean site. We can't ask for any more money. This was defeated. We were asking for a lot of things in the bond, so $245 million. It's an incredible amount. There was no room to do anything else. We're in a different situation. 2 months ago, I can certainly agree with Rebecca's position of like, oh man, what is the path of least resistance? We just have to do the path of least resistance. And that was pretty clear. That was really, really clear. I'm on team Nate, as I call it. You know, this is timing, this is things, but I've respected you so much. I've respected you to listen to you so much, to go, let's take care of an underprivileged neighborhood. And the data is muddy, but the numbers, and transportation, let's do walkability. I mean, all those they're close. They're all close calls. And so, you know, I thought when I hear Matt talk about absolutely, and we're not just talking about value, we're talking about, you know, we have to invest in our downtown. We have to do really important things. So honestly, I did not know how I was going to vote. I did not know how I was going to vote last night. I did not know how I was going to vote this morning. But I have had one piece of information that has started to bother me a lot, and it comes from my respect for David Harding. He's got me reading Chuck Marone. And I'm looking at these principles, and, you know, principle one: stop valuing efficiency, start valuing resiliency. Resiliency. So, how do I make this neighborhood resilient? And I started looking all over Utah for a place where a middle school increased density, where it gave you the neighborhood that you want. A dense neighborhood, a walkable neighborhood, did it increase density? And I can't find one. Chuck Barone, you know, stop betting our future on huge, irreversible projects and start taking small, incremental steps, iterating based on what we learn. So yeah, this is a huge, and that's the problem with tonight. This is a huge problem and it's a huge project, but that project takes up a resource. That resource, you know, a resource, that's like our bank account. No matter what we want to do, if we spend the last dollar in our bank account and we want to do something different, we just don't have that choice anymore. We have the last real estate dollar in that Dixon site, in the middle of the Dixon neighborhood, that is so important to that. What's the best use of that neighborhood? A middle school doesn't increase density, so what's coming down? Chuck Barone, you know, David Harding has taught me a lot about sewer capacity. We're not going to accept a donation, or when a developer says, hey, we'll pay for the sewer if you let us build it, because David knows, no, that will just show me where sprawl is going to happen. If I create capacity, that's where growth is going to happen. And so if I create capacity, if I build a middle school on its site, I create another capacity. I create a capacity on the real estate we have for new elementary schools. Middle school numbers and the demographics are really hard to predict. We will absolutely have growth, and we will need elementary school capacity, and we will have none of it left downtown. We will have no capacity to build an elementary school downtown. We will have our current capacity as it is today, but today something always changes. And so we can put that middle school there, and no more capacity for elementary schools comes. But if I want density, if I want families, if I want to preserve downtowns, I've got to have capacity. I have to have, and that capacity will in fact be available. In the last study session, a board member said, but we'll have capacity in Franklin. Yep. That means population will go to that capacity. And I see in our own neighborhood in Orem capacity. We have historic elementary schools in Geneva and Hillcrest and Suncrest. And they said, oh, they're aging out. What should we do? We'll combine them because the capacity is somewhere else. The real estate is somebody else. We can build on site, or we can do over here because the capacity is this way. And that means Geneva closes. What we decide here will decide the future of Timpanogos Elementary. It will absolutely decide the future of Timpanogos Elementary. And it would be awful for a neighborhood to not have a middle school, but to not have 7 grades capacity. And if we maintain that capacity, it takes a lot. The great Celeste Kennard could not save Joaquin in the year. It would have taken a 20-year decision ahead to go, you know what, we are going to invest in this elementary school. We're going to make sure that there is capacity for elementary school students here so that people will want to buy these houses, house prices will stay high, this will be a great thing. And if we don't, well, the developer is going to make a good offer and it'll come down to a year and it will become undeniable. And she can't save it. And the people trying to save Geneva Elementary School, they didn't say, we're going to gather signatures and stop your thing. They said, we're going to burn down your school district. We're going to divide. We're going to break away from your school district. And they went, but it's less expensive. And the most insidious part of this is when an elementary school dies, it doesn't die all at once. It dies by a couple kids slowly. You have to invest in places to say, this is where you should live. This is where you should bring your kindergartner to walk. And when that school ages out, and we are halfway, a third of the way into its lifespan, but we are certainly way further into its lifespan than a brand new middle school. When that school ages out, where will the kids want to go? Where are we going to want to put the kids? And we'll have all sorts of capacity on the edges of town. And everything that we're worried about will happen. It's what happened at Joaquin. It's what happened at Mazer. Here's more capacity. If we don't invest in elementary school capacity, we will not get density. We won't. But that takes decisions now. We only have one piece of real estate. So do we use that on a middle school that doesn't create density? Or do we say that piece of property has to always protect that elementary school? In fact, let's invest in it sooner than we think so we prevent Joaquin. Let's find a way to invest in it in elementary, how it's going to be, this has got to be elementary capacity because all the demographics I cannot predict. But everywhere on the Wasatch Front, from Orem to Spanish Fork to Salt Lake City, all the development goes to capacity. And if I want family capacity, that's paying attention, not just going, oh, I wonder how that happened. I wonder how we didn't think about what would happen to Timpanogos. It takes thinking about it way ahead. It's the hardest thing to do in education is to keep neighborhood elementary schools. Isn't it, Celeste?
I mean, you're right. Like us getting Provo Peaks and combining Mazer and Joaquin was a decision that got made because we fought so hard for a good decision.
Right. But we ignored sort of what happens with capacity. And capacity just makes things happen. It makes sprawl happen when we don't want it to happen. It makes people move outside because it's just a little bit cheaper and everything is going to happen. And if we don't pay attention to that capacity and we are using up, I honestly did not know how I was going to vote. Except I know that in my lifetime, if I voted to stay, that Dixon was going to stay in its site, I know I would live to see the day when Timpanogos would close. And I would know where that decision came from. And I love the people in this neighborhood. You've won me. I'm reading your books. You go, my neighborhood isn't so important. And I believe you. But I know these pressures because I just saw it in Orem, in 2 places in Orem, with 4 schools that they closed in. I see it in Salt Lake. I see it in Ogden, that those pressures get so big unless somebody jumps out in front of them, way out in front, and says, you know what, we have to invest in this capacity where not my 7th and 8th grader walk, where my 1st grader walks and my 2nd grader walks. We have to invest in that or it goes away. Because it's not a $70 or $80 million decision, it's a $30 million decision. It gets made a little quicker, and we saw it already. And that capacity makes things happen. And so I would love to still be on Team Nate and take the path of least resistance. But I know that when all the people that even wanted to come, that said, I bought my house for a reason, want to give their same neighborhood to their kids. I am privileged enough to live in that neighborhood where parents go, you inherit my house, and kids love it because it's still going to be the same. But when that elementary school goes away, is it the same neighborhood? It's not the same neighborhood. And those pressures get so big. And I desperately, and the thing about spending the last real estate dollar, that is what happens tonight. And so if I spend that last real estate dollar on a middle school, that is a great thing to have in a neighborhood. It's also a community resource, always. Community, it's not a neighborhood resource. We should invest in a neighborhood resource to preserve a great neighborhood, to make the front door of our community a great thing to be proud of for 50 years. Otherwise, it has a clock of just going, well, we didn't think about that. We didn't think about what managing capacity would do. And it's hard. And people have been beaten by it before. And I thought I was just going to go, you know what? They've demonstrated through elections, but I know I'll wake up and go, they don't have the neighborhood they want. They lost the element. I know that will happen again and again. I want you to have the neighborhood you envision. It's in danger. It needs investment. If we invest wrong, it will go away. And you've won me. I used to just think education. Nope, I have a responsibility for the community too. But that means that I have to keep possibilities open. And the only way is I can't spend my last real estate dollar on something that doesn't create density. I have to say no. But I understand that people go, what are the guarantees? There are no guarantees. It just means I have to fight like mad. But I have to fight for the neighborhood you want. Walkability, taking care of 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th graders for decades to come. And so that's what I have to do today. I have to decide how to spend that last real estate dollar, and I can't spend it on a middle school. I have to make sure that it pays off in a bigger way for your neighborhood. And otherwise, it just costs your neighborhood so much. It costs Geneva, it costs Joaquin, it costs these schools. Our district is unique in Utah with neighborhood schools. We just don't have, go find districts with schools 6 blocks from each other. That will go away in a heartbeat unless we invest way out in front of it. pressure will be so enormous to be more efficient, less money. And that's why I have to vote the way I would do, because I believe you. You want to protect your neighborhood. You want to do the best thing for the city. And so I can't vote to put a middle school back there. I have to protect elementary capacity.
Done. Yep. I'm going to talk about boundary changes because that's exactly what's going to happen. McKay wants all the underprivileged kids that might be around footprinters, and right now they're all bus to Centennial, which is over capacity, will be changed if you vote for footprinters. That means Jennifer's area is going to footprinters. That means a whole lot of area is going to be going to footprinters. But if you want Dixon boundary changes to stay the same, vote for Dixon.
That was short and sweet, Terry.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I already talked about turd sandwiches in our earlier meetings, so I probably won't do that one again. I don't know. This is it's a difficult decision, and I don't mean to be flip, but I have been arguing this for, it's been like 2.5 years. And for me, the big thing is, most of you I think I know almost all of you. We've all been in these wars for the last couple years. And, I've fought pretty hard for the footprinter site. I think it's the better site. It's like I like pizza and some people like hamburgers. There's small benefits to one or the other, and I'm willing to fight for it, but we've come to the point where I think fighting more is detrimental. And for me, I counted the numbers, and we had a lot of people making statements. If each one of those people goes out and gets 200 signatures, then this goes to the ballot in a year. And if we win at the ballot, if the footprinter site loses at the ballot, because this is how it's going to go. They're going to go door to door, and sorry, Save Dixon, if I malign you, but this, it's just my way. And they're going to go to the door, and they're going to say, hey, they're going to move the school, and it's going to cost you money for taxes, because guess what? It's going to cost money for taxes. Not that Save Dixon cares, but in our last bond campaign, it was all about, all my neighborhood was all worked up financially, and guess what? We're going to spend just with this stuff about 30 million more on these schools, and it's going to end up being like 60 or 70 million more. So, that's the cost of these delays, but it doesn't matter because they're going to go door to door, and they're going to say, hey, this is going to cost money, and everyone in my neighborhood is going to sign it because everyone hates taxes. And so it's going to be, I don't think the 4,000 signatures is going to be too hard of a hurdle. And then we push it off a year, and it's iffy if we win or not, because we'll have just done an MBA for Wasatch, because we're probably going to do Wasatch regardless. We'll separate it out, I would bet. And people will be like, well, I'm sick of getting taxed, and now I'm not voting for anything. And then Dixon gets pushed off again. And for me, that is the nightmare situation, because I don't see an end to it. And even though I prefer the footprinter site, I just don't think it's worth the risk. And I talked a little bit in our meeting about inflation. Right now we're in the sweet spot. We have high inflation and super low interest rates. And so if we buy a school right now, if we take advantage of that, it's not going to cost taxpayers that much, because our money will be worth less, and our rates will be, I think it's 1.6% right now for a 20-year bond. That's free money, especially when you have 5.4% inflation. But if we had a 2% increase in our interest rates, that would be an extra, I don't remember what the number was. It's like 21 million. Plus you add a year of inflation, and it's like a $28 million increase just because we decided to wait a year. Now, it doesn't have to be that. Hopefully everyone's like, okay, I get it, and that's cool, footprinter's cool. But I just feel that people are going to go out and go for the signatures, and the 4,000 isn't that high of a hurdle. And I would prefer to have a school right now as opposed to risk it and have our kids continue to go to that school, which is not worthy of being a school in Provo. So that's all I got to say.
Okay, is there any further comment on this motion? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and take the vote. All those in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. The motion passes. All right, next, we are going to have a motion to adjourn as the Board of Education. So is there someone that would like to make that motion? No? Okay.
That'll be towards the end, so we will first adopt these as.
Oh, adopt them as first? Okay. I had it written down differently, so thank you. So we're just consider them first? Okay. All right. So we will consider a resolution authorizing the issuance of lease revenue bonds by the Municipal Bonding Authority of the district to finance the construction of a middle school. So is there a motion?
So moved? Can I do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so where do we go next?
There's specific language, so in there it'll be that I move to adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance of these revenue bonds by the municipal building authority of the district to finance the construction of the middle school.
This one. Okay, so is that what whoever said I move?
So I need to say the actual words.
Yeah, you need to say that actual word.
Okay.
Here.
I move that we adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance of lease revenue bonds by the Municipal Bonding Authority of the district to finance the construction of a middle school.
Said bonding instead of building, does that?
Did I read it wrong?
Yeah, read it one more time.
I move that we adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance of lease revenue bonds by the Municipal Building Authority of the district to finance the construction of a middle school.
Okay, motion made by Board Member Bryson. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a second by Board Member Nielsen. Is there any further discussion on this?
So earlier somebody asked, why are we doing this? I think it would be helpful now to explain why we're doing the MBA instead of a general obligation.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Timeline. So Municipal Building Authority is, the district is given levies that are within our control but are capped by the state. And Matt said, what's your collateral? Our collateral are our levies. We have a great business administrator that has begun to investigate how those can be least impacted. But we're trying to move forward on a timeline with the hope of doing the best we can on a timeline. And so that's why we chose this, because we have that capacity. There's also a reason to use our taxing capacity. If there are certain matching funds, if we show taxing effort in the state, and if we don't show that effort, we don't get those matching funds, so it's like costs us money. It's our local contribution that has get consistently with growth. We're growing a lot, so those rates always notch down, and we have to have a reason to bring them up. And certainly these, a new middle school and a new elementary school are worthy projects of moving forward, and moving forward on a timeline that made us go with the Municipal Building Authority bond.
Okay, any further discussion on this? All right, seeing none, all those in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the motion passes 6-1. All right, next, we will consider a resolution authorizing the issuance of lease revenue bonds by the Municipal Bonding Authority of the district.
Building.
Oh, my word, Nate, thank you. We will consider a resolution authorizing the issuance of lease revenue bonds by the Municipal Building Authority of the district to finance the construction of an elementary school. Is there a motion?
I move that we adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance of lease revenue bonds by the Municipal Building Authority of the district to finance the construction of an elementary school.
Motion made by Board Member Partridge. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Jensen. Is there any further discussion on this? All right, seeing none, all those in favor indicate with aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All right. Next, we're going to talk about policy 7060. If Doug Finch could talk just briefly about this.
Thank you, Board of Education. Yeah, as we discussed in our study meeting, this is a policy that was recently approved for you regarding visitor management. We put together pretty stock language at the time back in like April when we approved that, but we felt like it didn't necessarily capture the feeling and approach. And based on the feedback from board members, we wanted to make sure that we made sure that the district was giving the message that our schools should be very welcoming, inviting. They should be safe and secure, but that doesn't need to compromise welcoming and inviting schools for those who should be in our buildings. So that language has been amended in the policy we have in front of you tonight.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve policy 7060, doesn't matter how I say that.
No.
As discussed in the study session.
Okay, motion made by Board Member Hales. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second by Board Member Bryson. Is there any further discussion on this motion?
Grateful for the changes. Thank you.
Yes, very thankful. All right, all those in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All right. Next is to approve out-of-state travel. Keith, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, we had 4 requests for out-of-state travel. 3 were complete, 1 was not complete. The board gave me authority to approve the incomplete one when I get that information. If it meets the criteria, the other 3, 2 from Dixon Middle School and 1 from Provo High School, Fine Arts, appeared to meet the criteria the board is looking for. So those are the 3 that are up for approval tonight, plus conditionally the other 1. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the out-of-state student travel discussed in the study session.
Do we need to add on there with COVID safety concerns?
Well, we discussed that in the study session, so does that count?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Okay, so motion made by Board Member Bryson, second by Board Member Partridge. Is there any further discussion on that? All right, seeing none, all those in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All right, next we need to approve updated PTIF authorized individuals. Derek, would you explain that quickly?
Yep, with changing of the business administrator, this is updating who is authorized to be the signer on the account, make adjustments and changes to that account. Would be removing the previous one and then adding me.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the following individuals listed on the public entity resolution as authorized individuals to manage the PTIF account as discussed in study session.
Motion by Board Member Nielsen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Hales. Is there any further discussion on this motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All right, H, approve the district's ARP-ESSER plan. Derek, do you want to explain that one?
Yep, so this is with the last round of federal funding that was passed. This is the new ARP-ESSER plan. As part of that, the plan where they gave everybody, it was like $1,400 or something like that. Part of that was to go to districts and cities and states and things like that. Well, this is our piece of it, and part of that is the federal government requires us to have a plan and have the board approve that plan and solicit input from the public. This has been on our website and out on social media for about a couple weeks, soliciting input. We haven't received any input as of today. So.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the district ARP ESSER plan as discussed in study session.
Motion made by Board Member Nielsen. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Board Member Bryson. Is there any further discussion on this motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Next, we need to approve a couple of large purchase requests. Derek, if you'll explain both of those.
Yep, so I apologize. This was supposed to be under the consent calendar like they normally are, but when I was creating it, I missed putting that there. So these are two separate purchases. One of them is going to be part of the ESSER plan. It's for Chromebook chargers. And then the other one is the elevation software for our English learners. And that's funded with a grant that's specifically for that.
Is there a motion?
I move we approve the financial reports as part of the consent calendar.
No, the other one.
Two large purchases.
Aye.
Just kidding. Where is it? Someone else do it. I move that we approve the two large purchase requests for $66,000, 187, 66,000. I should never do these ones with numbers. $6,187.50 for elevation and $254,990 for Chromebook chargers as discussed in the study session.
Okay, motion made by Board Member Hales. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Nielsen. Is there any further discussion on this motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All right, consent calendar. We need to approve the consent calendar. Is there somebody who would like to make that motion?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Motion made by Board Member Partridge. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Nielsen. Is there any further comment or questions about the consent calendar? All right, seeing none, all those in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Okay, now we're at this point. All right. I move that we adjourn the Provo City School District Board of Education and convene as the local building authority.
Do we need to do
We do not need to take a vote.
No, I mean like attendance?
A roll call.
Roll call?
Yeah.
After we convene.
After we convene, but not to close. So do we need a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Now, all right. I move that we convene as the municipal bond. Where are we at?
Didn't you wasn't that a combined?
Yeah.
We adjourned and convened.
Okay. So all those in favor indicate with aye.
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 All those opposed? All right. Now we're on part B. Okay. We will consider a resolution authorizing the issuance of lease revenue bonds by the authority to finance the construction of an elementary school. Do we have a motion?
I move that we, sorry, I'm on the wrong one. I move that we adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance of lease revenue bonds by the authority to finance the construction of an elementary school.
Motion by Board Member Jensen. Is there a second?
I second that.
Second by Board Member Partridge. Is there any further discussion on this motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Any nay? All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, C. Next, we will consider a resolution authorizing the issuance of lease revenue bonds by the authority to finance the construction of a middle school. Is there a motion?
I move that we adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance of lease revenue bonds by the authority to finance the construction of a middle school.
Motion by Board Member Nielsen. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Board Member Bryson. Is there any further discussion on this motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor indicate by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 6-1. All right. I move that we adjourn the local building authority and convene as the Provo City School District Board of Education.
I second that.
Second? Okay.
Second.
Would it be beneficial to explain to the public why we just had to do that extra?
Yeah, and I'm going to let Derek explain that.
Okay. So the reason we had to adjourn as the Board of Education, convene as the Municipal Building Authority, is because legally they're two separate entities. And so the board actually is the board of both entities. And so to act as either entity, you have to be entering as either entity. So you exit out of as the board and then convene as the building authority, and then now that that's done, they'll exit out of the building authority and then convene back as the Board of Education.
Do we have to say aye on that one since we're convening?
Yeah. So those in favor of reconvening on this motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. All right, next we're at our board member report by Board Member McKay Jensen.
The Board of Education had a long and difficult meeting. I loved everyone's vote. I thought everyone is voting their conscience in the way that they think they should do it. I congratulate you on doing difficult things and being willing to engage. I do stuff at the Capitol, but it's not as interesting, so we'll just go with that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, McKay, and thank you for all the work you do up at the Capitol for us, too. Superintendent, your report.
Yes, so regarding student travel in-state, I have approved a marching band trip to St. George from Provo High School, and I've approved an outdoor skills class. It's an overnight trip, camping trip with Independence High School. Both of these have been going on for quite a long time, and they've met all the criteria, so I signed off on them, and they're good to go. The only other things I would like to say, first of all, congratulations to CTE Director Clay Bingham and his partnership with New Skin, and to Board President Melanie Hall and Board Vice President Rebecca Nielsen and others who have been very, very supportive of the development of a new CAPS program, Center for Advanced Professional Studies. Thank you. I always forget the P. So they've just opened up today at New Skin, and the kids are really excited. You can sense the energy in the room. Also wanted to thank Board Member Gina Hales for attending a 2-day Sites Leaders Associates event up at the Homestead with me and probably 4 or 5 others. This was sponsored by BYU. It's held twice a year, one at the Homestead, one out of town, and or I guess Homestead's out of town too, one in St. George. And BYU covers all costs on that. We spend time discussing many items relevant to education and improving ourselves in this important role. So thank you, Regina, for that, and that's my report.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you for coming.